Hi everyone, my name is Tess Stuber. I'm on the executive committee of the Canadian Network on Cuba, and I'm the coordinator of the Guevara Volunteer Work Brigade. The Shea Brigade has been traveling for more than 30 years to Cuba on behalf of the Canadian Network on Cuba to learn about the situation on the ground, to exchange with Cuban workers and students, to volunteer and share in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Cuba and around the world. It's especially important right now that we continue traveling to Cuba and we continue understanding what's going on the ground. With the recent escalations that have begun this past January against the fuel blockade of Cuba, as well as the re-inclusion from the Trump administration on the state sponsors of terrorism list, and now the recent attacks on the Cuban solidarity movement in specific, it's really important that young people these days are getting involved. As a supporter of Cuba, I don't just fight for the liberation of the Cuban people, that's a fight that they're going to fight themselves, but in traveling to Cuba and understanding the situation, I'm also fighting for the liberation of the youth here in Canada. I strongly believe that the work that the Cuban people have done to support their revolution and to reiterate their own sovereignty impacts us here in Canada and all of our fight for the future in a better way, in a better world that, as Fidel told us, is possible. The Cuban people have achieved free healthcare, free education. These are things that cost thousands of dollars in Canada. I mean, the average Canadian student graduates with some $40,000 in debt. These are the kind of fights that are important for us to talk about. When we talk about Cuba, we're talking about ourselves. We're talking about the struggles of the oppressed peoples all over the world. But right now, we have a focus on Cuba because they are under siege, they are under attack from the US administration and all other imperialist organizations and governments that are complicit in these actions. We have to stand up, we have to speak in solidarity with the Cuban people and fight for them the way that they have fought for us and for all of those around the world. Thank you.
I'm Isaac Sidney, a member of the executive of the Canadian Network in Cuba and also a Cuba specialist at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Canada. Humanity is at a crossroads. It's at a critical moment, an existential time. Many times people have said this, but we can feel the angst in the air. What has happened in Gaza, the genocide against the Palestinian people, the ongoing genocide in the Sudan and the Congo, the geopolitical tensions, the ecological disaster that looms over all of us. And at this particular moment, the United States' determination to crush the Cuban people, to starve them to death, and to reimpose their hegemony, to destroy what can only be described as the unforgivable revolution, the unforgivable example, not just of independence, but of social justice, of a different way of organizing a society, of creating a truly genuine emancipatory and liberatory ethos. This is what the United States wants to destroy. The rulers of this nation are psychopathic, but they're psychopathic rulers standing on top of a psychopathic system. And this is what we must understand. The logic of imperialism, the logic of capitalism, the logic that places profit over human beings is incompatible not only with human survival, it's also incompatible with the survival of the planet. And so we need to stand today. We need to organize. We need to look at the fact that the vast majority of human beings have much more in common than separates them. I know there are many ideological and political differences on the progressive left, but what unites us is much, much greater than what divides us. And more importantly, unity is essential. And that's what Cuba's taught us. Their ability to survive over 65 years of unrelenting US hostility, from a mercenary invasion to numerous assassination attempts against its leadership, to economic sabotage, and to this hyper-aggression of the Donald Trump regime and Marco Rubio attempting to starve them to death, I think is a demonstration this is what unity and clear focus on principle can achieve. So we're at a critical moment for humanity. This is the time when we must have all hands on deck. This is the time when we must prove our mettle, right? We have to stand up for the world. We have to fight for a better world.
Hi, my name is Ann Cometh. I am the organizing director of Code Pink Ontario. I was also part of the Nuestra America convoy back in March of this year. The reason that I'm here is because I want to engage more with what's happening in Cuba. In March was my first trip. I fell in love with Cuba. I had an amazing experience. I met some of the most beautiful people in the world in Cuba. So I left my heart there and I want to return to help the Cuban people. Code Pink Ontario is actually organizing a delegation to return to Cuba in October. We ran into a few hurdles with airlines, but that's not going to deter us. a little bump in the road. It's not a roadblock. So we will be returning to Cuba in October with a Canadian delegation.
My name is Margaret Guevara, and I'm with the Communist Party of Canada, Marxist-Leninist, here at the 12th Biennial Convention of the Canadian Network on Cuba. Our party is a member, and it does a lot of work, particularly in the journalism front, so we give reports on that. Work in support of Cuba has been extremely important, and I'm sure it's going to continue being even more so, since we've had one order after another from the U.S. President and Secretary of State attacking Cuba. We don't believe in the separation either of the Cuban government from the Cuban people for the same reason. They work together, and they together have built and continue to defend their project. We're very happy to be part of this event, to be able to also recall and reiterate that Cuba is resisting. In the face of all the attacks, all the aggression, the attempt to sink it, Cubans have not stopped celebrating the events that they celebrate. The 100th anniversary of Fidel's birth is being celebrated this year, and they will resist, and we know they'll defend their dignity, and we're here to share in that with others in Canada and from the U.S. and internationally.